What's up, family? Welcome back. I'm elated. I'm having so much fun. Um, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is in a Hawks uniform. Luke Kennard is in a Hawks uniform. Very shrewd, financially sound, that moves that maximize optionality. Shout out Onsi Soleil, man. It's really hard to have a better offseason than this. Like, we'll talk about everything. It does hurt to lose Caris LeVert. I do think there are more moves percolating, but all things considered, I am endlessly impressed with what he has done so far. And the biggest thing to me too, um, just so much versatility. Offensively, defensively, closing lineups, starting lineups, offensively slanted lineups, defensively slanted lineups. There are so many fun things to talk about, right? So let's start with, I think it's probably the most premier acquisition, which would be Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So this ended up being a sign and trade with Minnesota. Ended up costing the Hawks 4 years and 62 million, which comes out to about 15 and a half, I believe. Just double check that. But what I like about this deal is that because it's at 15.5, the Hawks could potentially put in the MOE. They ended up putting it in the trade exception, I believe. So they ended up cutting the $25 DeJounte trade exception to 11 or something like that. I have to double check the numbers. There are a lot of like financial stipulations that are still kind of all across the board, just because the Hawks have so many different exceptions and they have the trade exceptions, they have the MLE, they have a bunch of stuff, and so you don't have to use all of it on one player. So as I pull up the graphic to show you guys, Bobby Marks graphics are really helpful for stuff like this because the cap stuff can get very confusing. But essentially, they absorbed not Nickeil Alexander-Walker's contract into the trade exception, which is why it's 11.3 million. They still have the Bogdan Bogdanovic trade exception, which is 13, and then the AJ Griffin, and I forget who the other one is. They then took the Luke Kennard contract, which was $11 million, and put that in the non-tax MLE, which comes out to, I think, 14.1 or so was the MLE this year. And so they still have $3 million left there. Right now, currently signed on the roster, they have five. They're starting five. I think Onyeka will start. Luke Kennard, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and then Vit Krejci, Kobe Buffkin, Onyeka Okongwu, Mohamed Gay. Those guys are signed. Asa Newell has not been signed, but he probably will be. You still have Larry Nance and Keaton Wallace, Don Barlow, and Garrison Matthews as free agents. The Nickeil deal is a really big win for the Hawks because I think that combo guard archetype. By the way, I did put this link on my Twitter, but one of my favorite Grizzly fan accounts, he did a really good piece about the importance of a combo guard and the prevalence of that archetype over the last couple championship teams, right? Of course, OKC has a ton of those guys. Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, guys who can toggle between being a 2, a 3, and sometimes even a 1, right? You need those guys who can scale up and down, are plus defenders. They're disruptive. They can hit open shots. They can keep the ball moving. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is 100% from that same mold. He's not as defensively dominant as someone like Alex Caruso. He's not as offensively gifted at times as someone like, I guess, like an Andrew Nembhard, but he is a very, 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 very solid player. And he fits really well with what the Hawks are trying to do in terms of defensive playmaking, transition conversion, tertiary playmaking. I was so excited for Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I was pulling clips before free agency even started. That's how much I believed that he would be in a Hawks uniform. And lo and behold, he ended up in a Hawks uniform, as everything should be. And so as I pull those clips up, I'll sort of walk you through some of the things I really noticed about his games, things I love. We'll start, let's think. I think we'll start defensively. I think that's the thing he's most known for. In Minnesota too, and let me say that for the offensive stuff. But yeah, he's 6'5" in shoes with a 6'9" wingspan. He's really 6'4". He uses his length really well. He's not in ball screen navigation, 98th percentile in offensive fouls drawn per game. And of course, there's always this thinking of like guys who can mentor other young guys, right? Nickeil has a very similar frame to a Kobe Buffkin. He plays a very similar game to a Kobe Buffkin. He in some ways plays a similar game to Dyson Daniels. His ability to use his length and his positioning to beat guys who are bigger than him, stronger than him, or these fronting guys, we'll see it in the clips. I think he could really help show Kobe Buffkin what he should be able to do, given that Kobe somewhat has a little bit better physical tools. But the thing that really stands out to me about Nickeil is his ability to take the ball away from people while he's behind them or he's on their hip, right? So he uses that +5 wingspan to just tap this away from Jose Alvarado with his left hand. Just very clean steal. I love this play here. They're basically trying to set up this alley-oop, right? So if you see the way that the Lakers are aligned, they're trying to isolate Nickeil as the low man here. I don't know why this is buffering, but they're trying to isolate Nickeil as a low man. Wow, Twitter is garbage. Let me pull that back up for y'all. So they're trying to isolate him as a low man, which is why they have Rui Hachimura cutting through, and they're pulling Naz Reid away from the rim, right? As Reeves comes down this pin down, it now isolates Nickeil as a low man. Now watch what he does against Jackson Hayes. That is breaking up a lob at 6'5" as the low man, using that length to his advantage, high pointing the ball, getting all ball. Okay. Now, this isn't something he did every time, but it's the type of plays that you can only make with great positioning, understanding where plays are developing, and having the length, the requisite length to do so as well, and the timing with the hands, right? Here he's, again, as a low man, he's guarding two because Lu Dort's stampeding from the corner, and he's able to force Lu Dort to double pump and then take it away from him. He's very good at coming out of nowhere. He just takes the ball away from KPJ here on that pull-up three. Again, here you're going to see the back tapping and the screen navigation. All right, so that was a ghost. But as Devin Booker gets past him, you still see his ability to back tap it away from Devin Booker. And these are like the best types of steals. I think they got out and scored in transition there. Again, here, back tap. Duncan Robinson gets a step on him. Wolves are going the other way. Easy 2 points for Dante DiVincenzo. Very big thing for the Hawks because they got out in transition a lot, but they didn't score very effectively on those possessions. They're going to need another guy as opposed to just Dyson who can generate those opportunities. He was able to time it up perfectly to get that block on Denny. Perpetually active, man, and the defensive metrics love him. His advanced numbers are really, really good for his role, but also just in general. If you're looking at, he's at 90th percentile in perimeter ISO defense, 98th percentile in defensive shot quality influence, 77th percentile in blocks, 73rd percentile in deflections per 75. And the Hawks now have 4 guys who are in the 50th percentile, 70th percentile or higher in deflections. You've got Dyson Daniels, who led the league in deflections. You've got Jalen Johnson, Mohamed Gay, and now Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They technically have 5 guys who are in the top 50th percentile if you include Zachary Shea as well. So the Hawks are building to be a disruptive team. I've talked a little bit about the turnover economy on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all over. The ability to influence your opponent's inability to take care of the ball is the best way to play defense in the modern NBA, right? Everyone is so good at creating their offense, getting to the spots that if you just take the ball away from them, you're creating the best opportunities possible for your team while completely preventing their ability to score the ball. Like, I think this is a great example right here. When you see Nickeil jump that pass, there's no better opportunity. There's no better play type, more efficient play type than transition buckets. And he was able to generate a lot of those with his disruption. Now, offensively, we're talking about a guy who shot 51% from the right corner, 44% from the left corner. He ended up, I think, averaging 9 points per game and 20 minutes played on average in Minnesota. And while Minnesota did get a boost in playmaking from someone like from Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards took a bit of a leap, and of course that Mike Conley. This is the first like motion heavy offense that we're going to see Nickeil in. He was played in Utah for a little bit. He played in New Orleans, and he's always kind of been with these ball dominant guys. Now it's outside of Jokic or Luka. Like if you haven't played with those guys, then you've never played with a Trae Young, right? But even in those types of less conducive situations, he shot 38% from 3 overall, or 58 true shooting percentage. One of the best spacers in the league as well. So he had a +5 relative true shooting percentage on spacing looks. And I think all those things will only continue to be better in the context while playing for the Hawks, because again, the Hawks were first in shot quality and second in 3-point openness rating. And we were one of the worst in the league at converting on that shot quality. So now you got guys who are not just great shooters, but can do a little bit more with the ball than just put the ball in the basket. So let's look at a couple examples of those. I love Nickeil's ability to drive closeouts. He's a very quick processor. So here he's going to take Ryan Dunn off the dribble, pump fake, get him shifting. Then he's going to counter the fact that Ryan Dunn cuts his drive off with the spin. And as he gathers, he reads the help from Mason Plumlee. And look at this no-look pass to Julius Randle for a poster. Like, I think in a lot of ways, Hawks fans have come to love Vit Krejci's ability to make passes similar to that. The difference between a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard and a Vit Krejci is that these guys have more offensive gravity. They're more viable defensive players. This is actually a really crazy pass. It may not look like it at first, but as Nickeil is running down the floor, he has a 3-on-2 developing. Şengün is trying to split the difference between two. So when Nickeil picks the ball up and goes like this, he's actually looking at Mike Conley in the corner. And you'll notice that Şengün peels off of Terrence Shannon Jr. And you see, watch Şengün's reaction here. Can I zoom in? I don't think so. But if Şengün throws his hands up, he's like, oh, like I completely messed it up because he didn't know where the ball was going. That's the type of manipulation you don't see from many role players. He can attack out of handoffs, out of pick and roll. He does a great job finding inventive ways to get it to the big man. So again, here, look at a little bit of that manipulation. He's going to gather at the free throw line, throw that initial pump fake, then gather like he's going to go for a layup, and then just wrap it around Şengün's back, and he's completely out of position. And again, that's a level of manipulation and passing creation you don't get from most role-playing wings, but we're talking about a pretty supercharged combo guard that is a plus defender as well. There were 11 players who I think had a B+ or higher in B-Ball Index's database for like finishing, shot creation, shooting ability. And there were also a C or higher in defense. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker was one of those select 11. So he does a lot of different things well for the Hawks. The one thing I will caution against, while you do see him bring the ball up the court, run a pick and roll, you do not want him here. He's going to run double drag, and he's going to end up getting that lob to Rudy. You do not want him as like your primary backup point guard only. Like he cannot be the only guy ball handling. You kind of saw his limitations against OKC. Again, it is OKC. But when he was asked to initiate offense and do a lot for Minnesota and get them into their sets and take care of the ball, he wasn't necessarily able to do that. That's why you got to understand what you're getting in a guy when you trade for him or sign him, right? The Hawks didn't necessarily understand what they were getting for DeJounte, and that's why he ended up being so underwhelming. For Nickeil, this is a tertiary decision maker plus defender, great spacer who can share. He can share ball handling duties, but he should not be the only guy. And that's where the Hawks make a lot of sense, right? You have Dyson Daniels who can handle the ball. You have Reed Krejci, you have Jalen Johnson, and now you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard, who we'll take a look at after we just look at a couple more clips for Nickeil. I think he's going to have a really good season for us in Atlanta. The contract he got was more than fair. He's at 10% of the cap. And again, for an archetype that's very, very coveted and outside of, we would have been paying Terrence Mann that money. Think about it that way, okay? You basically swapped Terrence Mann's contract, yes, for a first, but you ended up giving that contract to someone who's a much more useful player, has a lot more utility, a better defender, better passer, better shooter, like a full-on upgrade. And the difference between that alone is a first. Now imagine it's basically a difference in that draft between now we got that 2026 first from New Orleans. So like a no-brainer for me. Really good signer. There's a reason why Nickeil is one of the headline free agents. If you even go on the NBA website, Nickeil is the first person you see when you load up the site. And I think it's really cool for the Hawks to get a marquee free agent. It may be an underwhelming class, and it isn't LeBron or it isn't KD, but the Hawks are building a very solid team. You're seeing other national media members give us respect. I was like, I didn't even know that was possible, man. Like Bill Simmons is calling us out, Zach Lowe, Sam Vecini, John Hollinger, like all people who are making really positive comments about the Hawks, which honestly, man, a great feeling because it hasn't always been that way. Like I'm sure all of you are aware. Now, Luke Kennard is the next guy. We signed him on a 1-year, $11 million deal. One second, let me get some water. Signed him on a 1-year, $11 million deal. Optionality. Shout out on Soleil. That's a really good way to keep the books clean for the 2026 season. They are going to probably sign Dyson to an extension. Ideally, sign Trey to extension. The team will get a little bit more expensive, right? So you want to be able to have the potential to bring him back if necessary, but also don't commit yourself too long term. I think that Luke Kennard has always been respected as a shooter. Like I think, even if you haven't necessarily kept up with what he's doing in Memphis, I'm sure you know that Luke Kennard can shoot the ball. And the man can shoot. I think he is one of the best movement shooters in the NBA. And what makes that really important for the Hawks is that, with Bogey gone, for sure, we haven't had that. But quite honestly, I don't think a shooter of Luke Kennard's caliber or play style since Kyle Korver, right? Someone who's running off screen, someone who can make those short roll dribble passes, who can get to the cup out of flare screens by curling. Luke Kennard can do it all. He's grown so much as a playmaker, right? I love the way he moves off the ball. So here he's going to act like he's not going to use this screen from also, by the way, Memphis is a really inventive offense. But first, it looks like Brandon Clark's going to set a ball screen for Scottie Pippen Jr., but he's actually faking this to set it into a pin down for Luke Kennard, who gets a running start. Keontae George is completely out of position. And that is a 46%. Let me say it one more time. 46% three-point shooter on over 10 threes per 100 possessions. That's what Luke Kennard has done over the last 3 years, okay? If you leave him open, He will make it. Now watch the movement here, okay? The movement is key. He's going to be open here for the handoff, but with Brandon Clark catching it deeper in the paint, he knows if he relocates, he can make that pass easier and get himself open. Again, 46% three-point shooter. He's very dangerous. He can get to his spots out of anywhere, right? This is going to be a brush screen, guard-to-guard screen. He's just going to open up. Lakers can't communicate that well enough. You see the pump fake, and then he shoots this in a phone booth. And you see the quickness of the release. He doesn't see these guys around him, just fires it up, bang, cash out. I think he has an extremely quick release, very reliable, very repeatable. Here he is running pick and roll, getting all the way to the rim. Again, he's not just a shooter. He can put the ball on the floor, and we'll take a look at some of the passing once we look at the movement. This is a full-on football route, okay? I think this is my favorite play that I found from him. First, the back screen for Jalen Wells. When this happens, watch what he does to Landry Shamet. Pump fake. I'm acting like I'm going to the rim. Then I'm going to hit the brakes and then completely leave him out of the dust. And then he's wide open. Then he pump fakes him again. He's completely off the screen. That's nasty. That's nasty work. Yeah, here he is running off and I do think in some ways it's really good that we have KP, even though I don't think KP is the level screener that Edey is, or the passer, or the intuitive dribble handoff hub. Having a big, outside of Onyeka to set those screens is going to be really important. They can do some interesting things with Jalen Johnson, I'd imagine, as well. You might even be able to do some guard-to-guard stuff. Here, he got really custom running off these pin downs from Zach Edey. He's very comfortable in the in-between game. He can get to the floater, he can get to the rim. Here you see that guard-to-guard screen again. If teams don't comfortably switch that, he's just too good of a shooter to leave open, and he will make you pay. He really helped the Hawks capitalize on that shot quality. I love this inverted look here. Again, this is what I'm saying. Memphis is really, really smart with the way they draw up plays. So here they're doing a back screen to get Zach Edey to cut across towards the rim. Lakers don't want to they can't switch this, right? Because that's Austin Reeves guarding Luke Kennard. And then they still try to show because Zach Edey gets a step and he has a large catch radius, and then Luke Kennard just pops out. So they could do that. They can do that exact same thing with Jalen Johnson. They can do it with Dyson Daniels. Anyone who has a guard on them, and is a interior threat, you can do it with KP. It will be really interesting to see the things they can cook up with Luke. I think he's going to unlock the most offensive stuff out of the guys we've signed. It would not surprise me in the slightest if any combo of Trey, Luke, and Jalen is one of our best three-man defensive combos. Here you see him run off this initial action. Again, there's a guard-to-guard screen. I think I don't even know who that is for Toronto, but he gets caught up on the screen. Boom. Guard screen inverted for Jaren Jackson. He's just going to release it and be open. And again, you see how dangerous he is as a shooter, getting guys off their feet. And he's able to comfortably hit those mid-range pull-ups, right? There's other guys, if this is Garrison Matthews, he's not able to be able to just put the ball on the floor and get to a mid-range. It's going to have to be a sidestep three. If you sidestep, now it's easier to make that contest for DeJounte. It's easier to recover if you're to sidestep. When you can drive past someone and get to your spot, a lot easier to actually turn that into positive buckets. So Luke is really, really dynamic as an offensive player. I think you can actually put it in his hands and have him make decisions. Again, this is a good example. Also, just to emphasize this point, Memphis had Ja Morant off the ball to let guys like Luke Kennard initiate, okay? That should tell you how good he is. Here's the pick and roll. He's going to get deep enough to force the big to be switched off of Zach Edey, and then he's going to get the ball to Zach Edey. Now both Pelicans are kind of panicking because the small is on Zach and big is recovering. Now Luke is just going to recover out the space, and he can get his feet set from any position. He can be backpedaling, he can be running 20 miles an hour, he can be lifting, he can be diving to the corner, he can be shooting in transition, he can be off balance, on balance. Again, look at the movement. And this is really powerful. Okay, he starts off in the right corner. He's just going to take advantage of the fact that Houston hasn't adjusted their shell. He's going to go to the open space and then get guys in the air, put the ball on the floor, and drill the shot. He's going to be a lot of fun. I actually cannot wait to see what he looks like. I think he's going to really thrive off of Jalen's penetration, off of Dyson's penetration, off of Trae Young's passing, of course. Now let's look at his passing. Now, Luke Kennard is not known as a passer. I can tell you right now, though, that he's coming off the best playmaking season. Okay, he averaged 3.3 potential assists per 1 minute on the ball. He averaged 19 assist points per 100 possessions. 19 for a guy who started off as a shooter, right? Here you see that same guard-to-guard action, except now Luke is the one handling. He's going to get downhill, get 2 feet in the paint. You're going to see Desmond Bane relocate from the wing to the corner. Luke sees him here, but he's actually going to wait for him to get to the corner, pump fake, be completely under control, and then look at this bounce pass. right into Desmond Bane's shooting pocket, is able to get all the way to the rim. Here's against the Hawks again. You're going to see that flip screen from Zach. Luke's going to get downhill. He's going to act like he's going to shoot that to get Lance in the air, wrap it around his back, and it's an easy dunk for Zach Edey. Okay, this isn't the type of playmaking craft you see from most movement shooters, right? He's going to drive and kick, one hand bullet pass through two Raptors defenders directly into John Conchard's pocket, man. Yeah, this is the type of guy the Hawks just signed for $11 million. Again, less than 10% of the cap. A really dynamic movement shooter, someone we have not had, in my opinion, since Kyle Korver. His role will be very similar to Bogdan Bogdanovic, though. I think it'll just be a little bit more movement-based. Bogey was a much more proficient self-creator where he didn't necessarily need a lot of movement to get open. Luke will need that a little bit more, but that's fine because, again, the Hawks are built for movement. So here they're going to start him on that block. He's going to run into this handoff from Zach Edey. Now you're going to have Desmond lift, and you're going to have Zach Edey dive to the rim. And when this happens, it pulls in this lower defender to sort of tag Zach. And then Luke is able to get this around and through the defense directly into Santi Aldama, who catches it high, keeps it high. I love Memphis' offense. A lot of things the Hawks can take from here. And I think all these sets that Luke is effective in will work really well with Onyeka Okongwu, because Brandon Clark is a similar big man in terms of the touch in the short range or the short roll. Like, Brandon Clark has a really nice push floater. Onyeka has that same thing. They have the lob radius. They have screening ability. He will be really good with him. I also think he'll be really interesting with KP, of course, too, because KP can pick and pop. But, yeah, Luke can actually throw passes like this, driving closeouts. Again, you see the threat that he is as a shooter, but also as a driver. So you see how, because he demands that level closeout, it's easier for him to get downhill. And then you see the defense suck in. They're worried about that initial lob to Brandon Clark, and he's able to read this and throw this without really looking at Santi and get it directly to Santi. So with these things in mind, man, I think the Hawks bench offense will be a lot better than it has been in prior years. It really does hurt to miss Caris LeVert, okay? And because Caris LeVert is not – it was always going to be tough to retain Caris and get Luke Kennard and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. If you're looking at the financials, the Hawks would 100% be paying the tax, because right now we are $8 million below the tax line, I believe. Or actually, let me pull it up so I'm not giving y'all the wrong information. But last I saw, we were $8 million below the tax line. And of course, if you sign Caris LeVert for what he's worth, which is the MOE, if not more, then you're looking at paying the tax. And I do think this Hawks team is good enough now to be paying the tax, but I also will understand why they wouldn't necessarily do this, off the bat, just because, Oh yeah, sorry. They're $7.5 million under the tax. They still have some room before getting to the first apron. They now have 3 open roster spots. So, with all that being said, I want to share with you guys my first initial stab at building the rotation. Now, this isn't necessarily how I would run the rotation. It's just more so how I think the rotation will shake out with some of the tendencies that Quinn Snyder has and the guys we have on the roster. So, the first look at it. If I'll have this in this view, Trae Young has played 36 minutes. He's averaged 36 minutes the back-to-back seasons, okay? And that's not great. It's not great for a couple reasons. First thing is, he has the Achilles soreness, right? He's dealt with all season. And then there's just no need to continue to overextend him when you have a plethora of other ball handlers, right? So I've got Trae at 33 minutes, which would be the lowest he's played since his rookie season. All right? And now, of course, things are fluid. Optionality. Versatility. You can play him more or less depending on the night. Dyson, I've also got at 33 minutes. He averaged 34-ish this season, which ticked up a lot after Jalen went down. Zachary Riedishe at 29. I think the biggest hole in the roster right now is definitely at wing. Jalen has the most minutes per game at 34. Onyeka at 33. Nickeil at 25 minutes. Chris Stapps at 20. Luke Kennard at 16. Moge at 9. Vit Krejci at 8. Now, some things I think we'll definitely note. I think that Quinn will play Kristaps more minutes. I personally, if I was going to project this, I don't want Kristaps playing more than 6 minutes at a time. And with that being said, I think that it really depends too, like how they view Moge. I think Moge has earned the first crack at the backup 4 minutes. I don't think we'll see Asa Newell play in a consequential fashion this season. If not, and if we do, it would be like after the trade deadline. After he spent a good amount of time in College Park, and again, I will say some of this for when I break him down in one of my YouTube videos, but he needs to put on a lot of strength. His spatial awareness off the ball is really rough. and he is going to be a 4 in the NBA context. And so if he's going to be defending off the ball, you can't afford to have a guy like that who doesn't necessarily know where to be positioned, doesn't close out cleanly, doesn't box out cleanly. Again, all things I'll highlight in my deep dive on his game. So I do think he'll be out of the rotation to begin, and I think Mo Gay will be there. Now, it doesn't take a lot to get to surpass Mo Gay, as just, and that may sound a little disrespectful, but just in terms of like how gifted Mo Gay is defensively, he's also pretty raw offensively still, right? So he's been in this system for going on 3 years now. If they don't see offensive improvement and Asa comes around or Asa comes around well pretty quickly, it could be he could snatch his chain. So my initial stab of the rotation, I think they'll start Riza Shea. I do think Nickeil is a better player now. Doesn't mean that Riza Shea can't start over him or that Riza Shea won't be better. I think Nickeil is a better player now. There's an argument to be made whether Nickeil should start. I think if Riza Shea is on the same trajectory that he had after January 1st, I think you start him, right? We're talking about someone who's a 40% three-point shooter, 6'10". What I need to see from Riza Shea is some additional aggressiveness, effectiveness shooting at the rim, some more rebounding emphasis as well. At 6'10", he only averaged 3.4 boards. I would love to see that bump up to 5 or 6. Would definitely give the Hawks a lot more comfortability switching on the perimeter if they can trust Riza Shea to clean up the glass, right? A lot of that strength related, though, of course. I think that they'll probably lean on Luke Kennard as a backup PG, but again, by committee. And I think you'll see Vit Krejci play minutes in there. I think you'll see Nickeil play minutes. In the non-trade minutes, I think at least 2 of Kennard and Nickeil and Vit and Dyson should be on the floor. So if you do it that way, then I think you don't have to worry about the ball security and initiation as much, as long as 2 of those 4 are on the floor at any time. Because again, they can all dribble the ball. They can all initiate to some extent. But with both of them on the floor, I feel a lot more comfortable. So I think you start off with your starters for about 6 minutes. Then I'll start to trickle in Vit and Nickeil in the first quarter. I kind of just believe that once you start playing guys, now certain guys can definitely go the entire quarter, or they can go 8-9 minute stretches. Nickeil is one of those guys. You'll see I have him playing 9 minutes or 10 minutes straight here. I'm not concerned about that, especially with the break. But I wouldn't necessarily want to do that with Kristaps, and I would consider not doing that with someone like a Jalen Johnson, right? I think against small forward is a big hole for me. I don't want to overextend Dyson here and play him there. I think I can close with Dyson, and I can close with Nickeil at shooting guard. I think I can do that. But throughout the game, I'd rather not play Dyson there if necessary. I will close my second and my fourth quarter with him there because I do think the best lineup for the Hawks next season will have Trey, Dyson, Nickeil, Jalen, and Porzingis. I think that'll be our best 5. The best offensive lineup will have Trey, Luke, and Jalen, in my opinion. The best defensive alignment will have Nickeil, Dyson, probably Jalen would be my guess, right? So if that's the core 3 for each type of lineup, I think putting Dyson and Nickeil in the closing lineups makes a lot of sense to me with Jalen Johnson as the weak side rim protector. And then depending on the opponent, you may or may not close with Onyeka. I think if you're closing against a team that runs a lot of pick and roll, you definitely close with Onyeka. If you're closing against a bigger team, maybe like Orlando or even like a Denver, where they do run pick and roll, but it's like you really need that rebounding help. You need a presence around the rim. You could even go jumbo, possibly put Jalen on the floor. Like I think the closing lineups would be really interesting, and the defensive lineups, you have a lot of things to do. But I would guess they close with Nickeil over Zach unless he's on a heater or unless he takes a step forward, which I think they'll basically treat Zach how they did last season, where Karras closed a lot of those games because he's just a better player at this point. The Hawks should have their impetus should be to win games. Okay, they're good enough to compete seriously in this East. It's why I don't see Asa in the rotation. It's why I'm closing with Nickeil. Now, Zachary could 100% on certain games close games. He can 100% be good enough throughout the season to earn the right to close games, even if he's not necessarily shooting the ball well. But I do think that Quinn, as a veteran coach who, again, leaned on guys like Ian, a Terrence Mann over Riza Shea, I think that he will probably lean on Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think the question will be how often will they play Trey with Luke? Because I think they'll be really good offensively, but what's the best front court pairing for that? Is it Kristaps and Onyeka, which I have playing here together? Is it Kristaps and Jalen? Is it Kristaps and Gay? Is it Onyeka and Jalen? They'll have to figure that out. I think Vit Krejci, I have him virtually out of the rotation here alongside with Mo Gabe, but there will be nights where he plays more. There will be nights where he plays less. They don't necessarily need him to spot those minutes. I just want to give Dyson. I don't want to have Dyson playing more than 36 minutes a night with the defensive load we're asking of him, although he did do it really admirably this season. I think probably the biggest difference between what I have right here and what will actually happen is probably the Porzingis minutes, but I really think it comes down to like how fresh they want him to be. I think that if you want to make legitimate noise in the playoffs, Kristaps Porzingis needs to be healthy. He needs to be fresh. He cannot be overextended. He cannot be drained from the regular season. And that's where my thought process is like 20 to 25 minutes a night is probably where I'd want to keep him. We got to figure out what this viral infection was during the playoffs. He still doesn't know. And that pretty clearly impacted his play. But even outside of that, even if that is something that he's going to have to continue fighting through, I still don't want him playing like 30-plus minutes a night. He played 28 minutes a night in Boston. Now, Boston did blow out a lot of teams. They didn't blow him out as much as they did last season, but they did. He didn't close a lot of games for them. Again, they were typically winning those games by a large margin. It would depend on the opponent. And again, optionality is a privilege, okay? It's a blessing to be able to say, hey, let's close with our switchable three-point shooting, dribble handoff big who can guard guards on the island. Or let's close with the original unicorn. Let's close with Kristaps Porzingis. Let's see what he can do for us offensively. Let's see the rim protection. This team is so much fun. Like above all these questions I'm talking to, like some of the financial stuff, I think this team's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of pressure that I feel mounting that I hope they're ready to deal with because the expectations are gaining. Okay, with every great move, you've got to be able to prove that the moves were justifiable and also that they're putting the right team around Trey. I think they are. I love seeing that Trey was advocating for Luke Kennard and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, especially after he advocated for DeJounte Murray. GMs aren't great. GMs aren't made in a day. Okay, Sam Presti made mistakes too. And it seems like Trey Young is like, hey, let me lean into the connectivity, the versatility, the 0.5 decision making. Seems like he's bought in. Quinn Snyder has his Joe Ingles equivalent in Luke Kennard. He has his Rudy Gobert equivalent in Kristaps Porzingis. Let's have fun. Let's have optionality. Let's have versatility. Let's close with NBA players and lineups as opposed to George Niang at the 4. One of my favorite things said in the space today is that there are no excuses. There's no one. You have to Quinn-proof the lineup, right? Like you can't put guys on there that he's going to lean on because they're vets but aren't necessarily good players. 1 through 10, the Hawks have NBA players, and the work's not done. Larry Nance could be signed. They could pick up a wing somewhere. That would be my number one priority at this point. Yeah. Hawks are in a great position. I can't wait to get all this content to y'all. Working through clips. I have a lot of thoughts percolating on Asa Newell. Lots of thoughts percolating on Kristaps. Lots of thoughts percolating on this team in general. So please stay locked in. Okay, YouTube, podcast stream, Twitter, TikTok. I'm everywhere. Instagram too. Forgot about that. I'm gonna start plugging that more. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed this episode. Hope you learned a little bit about Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, where our rotations could look like. Let me know what y'all think about that because I think that will probably be a big point of contention. I already see my Twitter mentions blowing up, so I got to see what people are saying. But again, appreciate you guys for listening. Hope you all are enjoying what the Hawks are doing. We are on the path to glory. Okay, I feel it. I have full faith in Onsi Slade, Trey Young, and Quinn Snyder. I'll be safe.